It's finally here. After a super long wait, we finally have the first two episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the TV series on Disney Plus. You guys have no idea how long I've been waiting for this show, or at least how long I've just wanted it to be a thing, like since I was a little kid. And so I was unbelievably hyped for this show. Now, with all that being said, I will obviously try my best to separate my biases towards it and how much I want to like it from the objective criticism of it. And I do have quite a few gripes and nitpicks with the show, so I feel like I do have a lot to say on this, regardless of how much I want to just fan nerd out about it. So we open on a sequence of flashbacks going through the major events of the prequels. This was honestly the perfect opening. It established the tone and really set the stage as to the fact that this isn't going to be like the other shows. It's going to tie far more directly into the mainline series. It featured several different key events throughout the events of the prequels, as well as just some general sort of moments, between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like, for example, their speeder bit, like as if Obi-Wan is reflecting on the good memories that they had together. After the series of flashbacks of the events of the prequels, we get a new angle of Order 66 and Operation Nightfall. We see a group of younglings get attacked and their master is killed, and the younglings are forced to run off on their own. I think it's pretty safe to assume that Riva is one of these younglings in this group. After our flashback to Order 66, we then move to Tatooine, where we see the first Inquisitors arrive. Their ship is honestly so cool. It kind of reminds me of Vader's castle almost. And as soon as they see it fly overhead, the locals immediately know what's up. Like, they start running away, cleaning up like whatever they were doing in the streets. Like, I think some Jawas run away with some of their wares that they were selling, as if what they were doing was illegal or something. And then eventually they exit the ship and we get our first look at what all of the Inquisitors look like. And I guess that means that I have to talk about the Grand Inquisitor and the Fifth Brother. So, if you look at a side by side photo between the Fifth Brother and the actor playing him in the show, they just don't look anything alike. It's just kind of sad at this point. The Fifth Brother in Rebels was more of an intimidating figure. He was kind of like brute. I don't want to say he was dumb, but he was kind of dumb. Um and he was just kind of there to be the muscle to back up the other Inquisitor that he was always with. And in this show, he just looks like a dude in face paint. It's honestly kind of sad because if you look at the actual mainline series, the main movies and stuff, you see so much care put into the aliens and their makeup and their costumes and the prosthetics that are used. And here, everything just looks like an actor in face paint, which is honestly sad. They didn't even get the color right on his skin, which is just, you know, salt in the wound, to be honest. He looks small and non-threatening in whatsoever. And in the way that they wrote his character, he almost seems more introspective and more balanced, which I guess is meant to be more of a foil to Riva, but it just it doesn't even seem like the same character at this point. And for the Grand Inquisitor, obviously there's the pictures of the people from Utapau from episode 3, and then there's how he looks in the actual series, which is just again disappointing because they literally had the technology for this in 2005. It's not that hard. The Grand Inquisitor in Rebels was based on the people in episode 3. It's it shouldn't be that hard to just get some prosthetics. And I know with the Ahsoka thing, they said that it was just harder to do the fight choreo and whatever else, which is understandable, but only to a certain point. It just at this point it just feels like laziness because for this there's not really that excuse. There's no reason why having a little bit of a taller headpiece should really make that much of a difference in any sort of fight choreo. But the one thing that I will say is they did take a little bit of the fan criticism to heart because in the trailer, his eyes were completely the wrong color, and it seems like they fixed that. Whether that was like in editing or like whatever, they made the eyes yellow, so that's at least a plus. He at least looks better in that aspect. They end up threatening a local shop and eventually revealing the Jedi that's hidden there, which does go to show like a lot of Riva's personality, because she's just willing to like straight up kill this guy until the Jedi ends up saving him, which then obviously reveals himself. But after we see that whole scene and we get to really get introduced to who the Inquisitors are, we cut to our first scene with our titular hero, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was so exciting to first see him on screen. Like, I mean, at first all we were seeing was his day-to-day routine where he's, cutting up meat from like the desert monster. I heard people talking about how it might be a Purgle, but honestly, it makes a lot more sense that it would be something from either the desert or from back when Tatooine was covered in oceans. That to me would make a lot more sense. And as we go through this day-to-day routine, we get our first glimpse of how living in the desert has changed him. He steals meat for his EOP and doesn't step in when a coworker is abused. He's acting in ways that are just not conducive to how we would expect a Jedi to act. But it honestly makes sense because now he has bigger responsibilities than just like a day to day, like stopping small injustices. And that's how he's survived for so long because he doesn't do things like the Jedi in the bar. He doesn't, save the guy who's about to be killed by the Inquisitors. He sits back and he takes his lumps because he knows that he is there for something bigger. He makes his way back home, which is just a cave, which was kind of sad to see, to be honest. Because it doesn't even have walls. Like it's just some pillars, and it sucks that he has to live like that. But it's what he chose to do to keep a closer eye on Luke. So we see him make his way back home, and we see an astromech periscope pop out of the sand. At first, I definitely thought it was R4, but his head got ripped off and thrown into space in episode 3, so I don't think so. So while Obi-Wan's back at home in his cave, we see him interact with a Jawa who is trying to sell him, some parts and whatever else. Obi-Wan purchases a toy for Luke. If you're really paying close attention, you'll notice that this is the same T-16 Skyhopper toy that we see Luke playing around with in episode 4, which pretty much confirms that by the end of the series, Owen is going to at least come around in some sort of way and allow Luke to have this toy. The next day, on his way back from his commute to work, he goes in town to pick up his EOP and witnesses a second Inquisitor raid. They question Owen, and it's a really, really tense scene. Like, obviously, we know that Owen survives until episode 4, but it's just the way that it's written is very, very good, and it very much gets across the imposing and very real threat that the Inquisitors pose. The only nitpick that I have about it is that Owen just had like a very tense scene with Obi-Wan where he basically like chastised him and explained why he doesn't want Obi-Wan being involved with Owen and his family. So the Inquisitor, Riva asks him, all these questions about the Jedi and trying to gauge if he has sympathy for them or whatever. And he says that he has no love for the Jedi. And personally, I feel like it would have been a little bit better if he expressed his disdain for the Jedi by saying something more like, I have no love for the Jedi. A Jedi killed my brother. Because that really would have cut deep for Obi-Wan. Because he's literally standing right there. He can like hear and see it. And up till this point, he thinks that he killed Anakin. Then after that scene, Owen gets away and they all exit and our perspective changes. We get to see Alderaan for a substantial period of time, and from Leia's perspective, it's really like nice to see Alderaan because it was kind of always described as like this like beautiful lush planet and whatever else, but that was kind of always just in reference, and we didn't really get to see a whole lot of the physical aspects of it other than the fact that it was in a little scene at the end of episode 3. So while we're in Leia's perspective, we get to see that she's very adventurous and, judging by her going to watch the starships, wants to travel and explore the galaxy. It's made clear that the Organas are keeping Leia a secret, which doesn't really make all that much sense because no one knows who she is. They could just say that she was an orphan they adopted and treat her like a normal child. That's always the impression that I got from the movies, especially given the fact that Vader didn't even know that she existed. She ends up getting into a fight with her cousin, who is really just an absolute prick, and she kind of wipes the floor with him. But in that scene, we can actually see a little cameo from C3PO. And then a little bit less obviously is R2D2, which I'll put like a little picture if you missed. After that little fight with her cousin, her mom tells her that she needs to go and apologize to him. And so instead of listening to her, she runs off into the woods, where she is eventually kidnapped by Reva, which actually ends up opening more questions than it does answers. How does she know who Leia is? Why hasn't she told Vader? What does she know? What doesn't she know? How does she know that there's a connection between Leia and Kenobi? And later in the episode, they reference like her going through the archives and finding some sort of connection. But what is that connection? Because as far as I know, the only connections that they had were a couple of loose missions on Christophsis, which really isn't that much to go off of. Any Jedi could have had that. And then after that, they met up at the end of episode 3, but it wasn't anything like note that would have been noted in the Jedi archives. Like that was after Order 66. They would have kept that a secret. But anyways, Reva has this obsession with Kenobi, but the only way that it's explained is through the Grand Inquisitor calling her the lowest of the low and that she needs to prove herself. It can be assumed that Vader wants Kenobi dead more than anything, but if she has no personal connection to Kenobi herself, if she's just doing this to impress Darth Vader, I will be a little bit more than disappointed. She is way too dead set and personally has this conviction about finding specifically Kenobi. And if it's just to please Vader, that's going to be, a really sad payoff because she could have picked any high value target and just gone after them. So why Kenobi specifically? The first episode ends with Bail finally convincing Obi-Wan to go out and find Leia, then digging up the old lightsabers and leaving. At the end of the scene, while he's about to board the commercial flight, he's just kind of openly wearing his lightsaber, which I find kind of stupid. But I mean, it was obviously just for the audience to see that he had his lightsaber. So those are my thoughts on episode 1 of Kenobi. Obviously, it opened a lot of questions without really answering them, but that's of course the purpose of the pilot. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown, and I will be hopefully posting episode 2 either today or tomorrow. And if you did enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, whatever else you feel like. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.